We have identified media outlets that do not serve freedom of speech, but endanger the security of Israel's citizens. And the main instrument has been Al Jazeera, which actually caused us to lose the best of our sons and actually incited.
Israel has joined Gulf states in moving towards shutting down Al Jazeera. The government's pushing to end the Qatari channel's operations in the country over accusations the network supports terrorism. The decision involves revoking the press credentials of Al Jazeera journalists and cutting broadcasts from local cable providers. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused the channel of inciting violence through its coverage of security developments around Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. But the network says it's an attack on free and fair media, and the broadcaster questioned Israel's policy towards press freedom. Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined now by Professor Yossi Meckelberg. He's the head of International Relations, Social Sciences and Law at Regent's University, London. Good to have you with us, Yossi. So this is an interesting step by Israel. It doesn't normally back plans by Sunni Arab states. Why is it moving against Al Jazeera?
Well, I think we should start with the principle. Every democracy needs freedom of speech, and there is no freedom of speech if there is no freedom of press. And I think this has to be enshrined in any democracy. Now, I think Israel is looking what happens in the region and think in this realignment within the region, attacking Al Jazeera, it's rather convenient at this point in time, let alone when the Prime Minister is in quite few personal problems and has to deal with police investigation. This is one of the easiest ways to gain some political points. But at the end of the day, Al Jazeera is not Israel's main problem. Israel has way bigger problems to resolve, and this is just a distraction. What happened in Jerusalem 2-3 weeks ago didn't happen between Al Jazeera. Maybe some of the way that Al Jazeera portrays it doesn't necessarily help. I think every press organization, outlet should be responsible, the same way that government should be responsible, but Al Jazeera didn't create it.
But it's the accusations, I was going to say, it's the accusations that the Israeli government are making, which are particularly hitting Al Jazeera hard. The communications minister, Ayub Kara, says it's because of Al Jazeera's coverage of the protests at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Al Jazeera is guilty of incitement. Al Jazeera, of course, would say that it covered these protests in an unbiased way. And Al Jazeera, you know, let's be fair, weren't the only news outlet covering those protests that happened. BBC was there, CNN was there, Israeli journalists was there, and Israeli journalists are also saying that, you know, they've been restricted from doing their jobs by the Israeli military.
Yeah, and that's actually my argument. You see, this government has a history of trying to restrict freedom of speech, attacking free press. All in all, Israel is a free country and the press is doing quite well, but under constant attack. As you mentioned, the other media outlet, the BBC is under constant attack and criticism from Israel. You know, France 24, everyone that criticized the Israeli government is actually attacked by the Israeli government, including the Israeli media. Actually, the Israeli media, the Israeli official TV went under complete reconstruction because Mr. Netanyahu didn't like the way that he was portrayed there. I think, you know, Al Jazeera is the easiest target in this sense because it's not that liked in other parts of the Middle East. It's under attack there. Obviously, it criticizes Israel quite severely, but I think more than anything else, this is a noise that the Israeli government is trying to distract from other issues. The problem of what happened in Jerusalem has very little to do with Al Jazeera. It has to do with the occupation, and it has to do with not resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I'll just give you a small example. 5 years ago, the Israeli government closed a peace radio, All for Peace radio, just because it broadcasts from the Palestinian territories inside Israel, though it was all about peace. And the people that founded it, 6 months arrest warrant was put on them in case they broadcast again inside Israel.
So how does Israel call itself the only democracy in the Middle East then? If this is now government strategy to rein in the free media, how does it call itself a democracy?
Well, I think in relative terms, Israel has more free speech and free press than most other countries in the region. But I don't know, it's not a comparative thing. I think freedom of speech is something sacred in a democracy. And if you try to limit access of journalists, what they report, I think here and there you have journalists that not necessarily behave responsibly. I accept it. And I think there is a way to rebuke, there is a way to present a counterpoint. It's a democracy of sort, but it's definitely not what people like me that work with the media, write in the media, would like to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was looking at the organisation Freedom House, which grades countries' press freedom. Last year, it downgraded Israel's press freedom from free to partly free because of military censorship and gag orders. Is Israel not worried about how allies, the US, for example, which puts such great store by freedom of speech, how they're going to react? Does it affect relations with the rest of the world?
Well, it's interesting you raised the issue of the United States. The media is under attack in the United States right now. It's enough to listen to
that's a very good point, actually.
And the people around him. So maybe, you know, Donald Trump found his soulmate in Jerusalem right now in thinking all the problems of the world, the media. You know, it's not new in history. It's instead of dealing with the issue, you try to kill the messenger, so to speak. Luckily, not physically, but figuratively speaking. Yes, the media is under attack, and I think the media should, you know, reassert itself. Sometimes also reflect when the media does things that it shouldn't. I think there should be a reflection and understanding where they could do better. But at the same time, it's for the public that wants free speech. It is from the media that should stand on the back feet and say, we are there to provide the service, we are there for democracy, and without us, democracy would collapse. But, you know, it's not only the United States and not only Israel. There are other places that I'm sure you know very well, that there are attacks on the media and journalists are arrested, and their freedom of speech is very much constrained.
Yeah,
and I think this is a time to fight back.
You're right. It's an industry very much under pressure. Yossi, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Yossi Mecklenburg there.
My pleasure.